point is not to be looking backward, not to live in the past, not to live regretfully, not to open Instagram. For me, I just have to stay off it. I am too insecure to see the amazing work that you and all of my friends are doing, because also then I'll be influenced by it and unwittingly maybe do something too close to it. I need to go be drinking in other things, travel, book, anything else, listening to my clients. What's interesting to them? What did they buy recently? What are they doing with their homes, et cetera? So that's part of that, is just like the mental space of not really studying other people's work.
This is the Wine and Dine Me podcast. Forget the etiquette. No rules, just real talk. Today, I'm excited to have Calder Clark as a guest on the podcast. Calder has garnered a loyal and widespread following for her curatorial eye and hyper-tailored take on entertaining. Calder offers a signature residential flair and editorial twist on impeccable affairs around the globe. She spreads the mantra that weddings are inherently about the art of storytelling, that they must be individualistic, expressive, layered, authentic, and incredibly compelling all at once. Named a top planner by Vogue, Over the Moon, Harper's Bazaar, Brides, and Martha Stewart Weddings, Calder Clark's portfolio spans 25 years and has been featured in Veranda, Town and Country, Southern Living, Coastal Living, Martha Stewart Weddings, the New York Times, and other notable publications. I'm so excited to have you with me today. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm glad to be here. What a fun way to start a Wednesday. I don't want to work. Let's do this. Let's talk shop. Let's talk shop.
I always walk away from these conversations feeling so inspired, and I have a feeling based on the outline that we've shared that this will be a good one.
I think so too.
Well, I always send a pre-recording survey, and one of the things that stood out to me was how you answered what is one of the bravest things you've ever done. And you responded that you said that you decided to let go and you're not a control freak anymore. So please share. How did this come?
How did this come about? I don't know what happened in the past year for me, but something kind of shook loose and I realized there is no such thing as balance. I don't have to have it all together. No one even likes people who do per se. You're more likable, vulnerable, and pleasant to be around if you're not white knuckling everything. And so that happened a little bit over the arc of 2024. So I guess, I'm tired of the game, not like the rat race per se, but just the constant wondering, like a great example is when you have had one or two really palpable conversations with a potential lead, and then they just disappear into the ether. And I used to complain to my team, I would say, can you imagine calling an interior designer with your $1 billion home and listening to her share all of her wisdom and having this great connection with her, and then just never speaking to her again, not saying, I'm so sorry, we went in a different direction, not texting her to say, listen, I think we've bitten off more than we can chew, just nothing, just peace in the middle, like just bye, not even a bye. And it really used to grind my gears. And so it's a great example now of, I had an industry friend of ours, I'm not sure if you know her, but a California peer was just blowing up my phone yesterday on sort of this group text we have. So, and she's just absolutely miffed at something kind of similar. Although this client did take it a step further and sign a contract, but didn't send the wire yet.
Oh.
And you'd think that we would have that wisdom by now. I'm 26 years in. She's got to be right behind me, or if not ahead of me. And then they bailed. And I'm just not going to let that stuff get to me. That is a reflection of whom they are and not me. And so that's been refreshing because I just have conversations with people and don't have high expectations anymore.
That's good. I mean, you've at 26 years in, you've earned a take it or leave it mentality. And those little things are red flags that it's probably a blessing in disguise that they walk out of your life.
Because if you can even remember the names of some of the folks with whom you've spoken, you'll see a wedding a year and a half later and go, oh, that's who they used. And then go, oh, and maybe even hear from that friend that they were wretched or miserable, or you can see in the body of work that it wasn't for you. And So I don't know. I don't know.
Well, yeah, it's a theme that it's rude, it's shocking. I think it's not specific to the brides. It's also their parents who you would think would know better. And anyway, I think it'll be refreshing for people to know that it happens to you too.
Force all the time.
Uh,
Yeah.
So 26 years in, you've been in the industry long enough. What are some of the biggest ways that you've seen the industry change?
Hmm. I mean, it has shifted massively as far as access to resources. I remember when I left DC and moved to Charleston and was proposing furniture vignettes. I was at Charleston Place, which was Orient Express and is now Belmond, well, is now privately owned, but you know what I mean. I was in
Yeah.
hotel world and just trying to get lovely seating to some of my parties. And then when I kicked off this business in '06, '05, I was doing the same thing, just trying to get beautiful kind of residential touches into my parties. And all that was available was white pleather, really slick white pleather. And I was like, wow, wow, wow. And I mean, it
Yeah.
took a minute though. I had a warehouse
Yeah.
model for a long time because of that, because I had no choice and it just made sense. And so I think that's pretty cool that there's just a lot to be had now. I mean, Charleston's a great example, but even in other, regions, there's just so that's been really cool to see this breakdown between the wholesaler and the retailer and the designer. And
Mhm.
I feel less and less like I have to explain what I do to large companies who have these really steep minimum opening orders. Now I can sort of explain that I'm going to be just as good as an interior designer as far as what I'm going to get from them and how I'm going to handle myself and what good sales they can come by with me annually.
Right.
I mean, I'm not a stocking dealer, but just like in a non-stocking dealer perspective. So that's been kind of cool because I had this big textile background and this big ordering background, for lack of a better
Mm,
word.
mhm, mhm.
And now I feel like, especially the bride who doesn't have a you or a me, really has access to good looking things. So that's it.
Totally.
I
Yeah,
think,
no, I think that's great.
yeah. So access, resources. As far as the culture, I mean, what do you narrow it for me? Like,
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, attitudes, plainer expectations, like, I don't know, egos, also the emergence of like huge conferences and just like the lifestyle culture of our industry.
hmm. Okay. Well, I mean that so I'm gonna speak now for an hour straight. You won't get a breath in, and I'll see you in a little bit. No, okay, yes. Before that, one little piece about the bride has definitely changed. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really easy for me to see I was of the marrying I mean, everybody's of a marrying age, but I was 26, 27 when I started this company and had like 5 years under my belt of doing this kind of thing or whatnot. And I feel like my clients were me. They were 20
Mhm.
something, 30 something,
Yeah.
maybe even socioeconomically from a similar background or looking to spend kind of about what my parents gave us as a gift, which was this
Sure.
pretty party. And expectations were just generally lower. I mean, I hope I still met them and exceeded them. I hope that we took great care of those early brides. I'll still sit down at a restaurant or a lovely little place in town or anywhere really in any big city and occasionally have a bride sit down next to me and go, "Do you remember doing my wedding? Do you even remember me?" I'm like, "Yes, fool. We've just aged a little bit." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yes. Oh my gosh, Alice. Alice sat down next to me at Raw downtown and she was like, "Do you remember me? It's Alice Mims Rose." I'm like, "Alice, yes, silly goose." Like, "No, you're whisked into the ether." But truly Alice is archaic compared to my current Alice. Like
Right.
in a way, I can see why she would say that because it was so long ago and her wedding was nothing like what they're expecting now. I still remember it. I loved it. But so, in that sense, they've changed a lot. Weddings are just, they're a different beast now. I can't say I hate it. It's how we feed our families and it's a lot of fun. I mean, I'll take it to the top if you want to, and I'll take it over the top if you want to. But there is something kind of sweet that's been lost. Like we've
I
lost the
agree.
plot a little bit. Do you agree?
Right. I totally agree. And then when it was easier to surprise people, and their guests included, they hadn't seen it all. Like, this industry was so new and cutting edge that it was easier to surprise, and now the expectations are so enormous, and you, I'm sure, can speak to this. The budgets cannot support these expectations that are all over the internet that these brides are coming to the table wanting.
They really can't. I feel like I am always the Grim Reaper. Okay, here's the
Yeah.
rub. I was taught to be a barracuda. So in sales in DC, I was in catering. And then at Charleston Place, we had mirrors. So both locations, when I was in a real office, I had a mirror in front of me. And you were taught you were always supposed to smile when you were on the phone and to show that warmth, which isn't a bad thing. I still believe in that. And then also so as you sold to yourself in the mirror, you were supposed to be as responsive as possible. It was just understood that he who gets the gold rules. There was early bird gets the worm type stuff that even your parents probably said to you. And then I was talking to a friend who's in finance, a woman who's very successful, a very good friend from WNL actually. And
Ah,
she said, I don't understand why you always get back to them first. I think that's your problem. I'm like, oh, okay, wait, go there with me. She said, well, if you've got to bend them over your knee and explain what weddings cost, and you're always going to be the first to do it, and then they talk to two or three more people who then seem by nature softer and more chill or more friendly and more easygoing because you've done the heavy lift of explaining just how pricey this investment may be, then you can't win for losing. And I'm like, so what you're saying is I'm supposed to ignore their email for many days and then sort of slide into their inbox like I couldn't be bothered. I mean, I just not in my nature. So
yeah,
therein lies the rub. I'm still the Grim Reaper. I feel like I get back to people very swiftly. That's part of my MO. That said, I have great boundaries. I'm not texting my clients at 10 o'clock at night. I don't mean any of that. But if you ask me if I would like to be on a call to hear about your wedding, I want you to feel like we're excited for you and that you're going to hear from
totally.
24 hours, if not less. So,
Right.
all that to say, I do think the investment piece is wild. You and I both have some friends who've done some really brisk 15 to $20 million business in the past few years, like one wedding that's north of those numbers. And they're just, I'm so happy for my friends who've done that. And I'm so excited for the bride who could swing that if that's what her family wanted. Like, no judgment whatsoever. It's beautiful to look at and it's thrilling. It's like a piece of art. It cannot be touched.
Absolutely.
And I'm fine with that. If anything, I'm learning from that. But
Mhm.
when my potential client has seen that and then is coming to me with anything less than that, I don't know how to say, by the way, the entire floor of your 10,000 square foot tent is not going to be 3M laser wrapped. So I
Right.
don't know how to say it. I mean,
Right.
do you want me to cordon off $250,000 just for your floor? Because I was cordoning off like 15 for a dance floor wrap. So that just those kinds of things I think are really hard. They know too much and now I know too much. I have always known too much because you and I know what they don't know. Now
Right.
they know too much. And it's like,
Well,
eh,
we were even talking. I remember a conversation you and I had about 8 or 9 years ago, kind of to this effect of speaking to these prospective brides, sharing with them the real costs and losing those weddings. And then I believe you told me that you have had this happen to you, and then since that conversation, I've had it happen to me, where those brides who hired someone else who was telling them, "Oh, this can be achieved at a lower ticket price," call you back and say, "You told me the numbers that I actually was going to spend."
I'll never forget that. That is so funny you remember that because it is a bride. That specific conversation, she went on to build and run a beautiful wedding venue in the Southeast, and she still does. And I remember the budget, I remember everything about it, the location, all the things, because she called after the fact a year later and said, do you remember me? And I said, of course I do. I remember our conversation, which, okay, to be fair, sometimes I'm going to forget everybody I talked to, but I
Yeah, yeah,
did
yeah.
remember kind of a different name. And I think she was a twin. I can't remember exactly I wanted it really badly and I lost it to a competitor, et cetera.
Sure.
And she said, my dad didn't want to hear it. You said a number, it shell shocked him. he didn't believe you and he didn't want to hear it. And then we spent that and then some, and I still didn't get you. And now I'm fussy about it. And I was like, well, that is the biggest compliment you could ever pay me, but also the most depressing news to hear because it's still a piece of
I know.
business that I didn't get to take care of her. But since then, of course, we've stayed in touch. And it's very sweet that you don't probably ever get to, you probably don't always get that phone call. And how bold of
Right.
her to tell me, it gave me such confidence that I had done the right thing in being clear, and clear is kind. And that is completely our mantra. But I'm a cost plus GC. I have to be clear because that's integrity.
Sure.
If I did it a different way, which some of our buddies do and is rife in the industry, and you're forced to do it in catering world, you're forced to do it in hotel world. If I did things a different way, perhaps that wouldn't be the case. But I sleep like a lamb at night, and it clear as kind. So yeah, I'm gonna I just do not use the house metaphor all the time. I'm so
All the time, every
you
time.
want to redo a kitchen and have the contractor tell you 150 is going to cut it and then have you spend 3 and just hate him and all of his subs. So similarly, I'm like, I can tell you what you want to hear, as many people will do who probably aren't even trying to be duplicitous. They just don't
Sure.
know the numbers well. They're not
Well,
great.
because they haven't done it. They haven't
Uh,
necessarily done it enough to actually speak to the market value of
it's
what they're
amazing.
selling. Yeah.
Yes. So I don't even know how I got off on that tangent, of course. But yes, the investment piece is tricky these days. I think once we clipped into the millions, also, there is there not just a stigma surrounding the M word? It costs $1 million to raise a kid these days, et cetera. Like everyone's scared to hear that because we're all worried about what we need to retire or what we want to put aside or what we think we're worth, our net worth, et cetera. And so when you hear some woman you've never met before tell you what you're going to need to spend to have a beautiful party for your daughter, I think people can get insulted or they can think like, oh, hogwash, even if they handily have it and then some.
Right. Right.
And that's
Exactly.
tough. I don't set the
Wait,
price.
this actually leads me, I have one question that I think I could ask you now, and that is, are there any misconceptions about luxury events that frustrate you?
Well, what's one that frustrates you? And I'll spin off that.
Well, I was kind of thinking along the lines of the M word, the $1 million. Like, are
Eh,
people assuming, oh, you're just going to take me to the cleaners? I don't need to spend $1 million to get what I want. That's one thing that frustrates me, that people just assume these luxury providers are just out to get them and they could get it somewhere else.
There's a couple of things that have been around since the old days, which is that the W word is the problem. That once I hear it's a wedding and not a 40th
Yes.
birthday party, that I'm really going to take you to the cleaners. And it's like, I
Right.
know really, actually could not care less whether you're going to have a ceremony or not, or we're going to be in a church or not. No, the party itself to be infrastructurally sound, to be done well, if not insanely well, is
Hmm.
likely to have several line items that you're just not gonna love. It's like putting a roof on your home. You don't get to live in it or on it, but you sure live under it, so you better do it right. And
Exactly.
there's nothing different about especially a tented wedding, but almost all weddings. So, yes, I mean, I think the way that I explain against that I think is the most sensible and the one that seems to work out, at least for the wonderful clients I've gotten to have and the ones who I currently have, is that I don't advertise and I don't really have this like marketing budget other than just chatting with you and being on socials and
Right.
just I'm just a girl trying to get by. And so
Right.
if I don't take care of you, why would you tell anyone about me? And then my kids don't eat. And then I don't get to shop and that's not fun. I can't pay the bills. It's not fun. And so we're a two income family. My husband works and I work and we always have and we have future dreams and goals just like you and your family do. So I got to tell you, if 3 weeks out from the wedding you've stopped talking to me because I keep, slamming you with new bills that had no bearing on the projections from the beginning, I mean, that's not a great relationship. And then I'm not having fun and you're not having fun. And then what's the point? So I always warn people that, like, I, part of what we do is really joyful and fun. And part of what we do can be tricky with the numbers, but either way, we're in it to win it. Like we're in the fun and the ick with you the entire time. And I think we can de-ick the ick if you'll just believe us when we give you those early numbers. Like,
Right.
not the giant I told you so, but don't you sometimes wish you could go back to your recorded early lead calls and be like, and here at minute 30 is where I said exactly what would come up again 6 months later, which is,
Yes.
to
Yes.
be in a tent in the middle of a field in the middle of nowhere is going to be like building a venue and it's going to
Right.
cost. X or around there. And so, yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know what it is. I had a dad the other day say, I just think anything over a half a million feels foolish. And my favorite line, and will always be my favorite line, is price is only an issue in the absence of value. So if you don't see value in an infrastructurally sound, semi attractive, safe, fun party for your daughter, then by golly, take it to the country club in
Yeah.
Timbuktu and have your $495,000 999 cent wedding. And it will be fun. It will just not be what we've been talking about, which is an entirely different thing, a resort buyout with multiple days full of parties and such, and good booze, good times, good friends, amazing food. Like, I don't set the prices. I am
Yeah.
not responsible for that expensive steak. I am not the one talking about flying in certain wines. Like, I won't push you. I've got a
Right.
really practical side, but I can tell you where it would best show hospitality and grace and all of that. So yeah, a long way of answering your question. I think that's just like the daily fight for us is because we've clipped into the millions. I think when things were 650, 750, I don't know what it is about that sub-$1 million price point that people of a certain net worth could really comfortably absorb that. And now people of the same net worth, if not increasingly more, are like thinking that I'm out to get them. I'm like, I can't hurt you financially.
I know.
I'm not your broker. I'm not your portfolio manager. I don't have your credit card. I don't play banker. The money doesn't even run through me. So
The
how could I
choices are
hurt?
yours.
Absolutely. You're signing your contract and I'm the one who
Right.
negotiated it on your behalf and better than you ever could have. So
Yeah.
trust that I am alongside of you and not counterpoint to you. So,
Right.
and I think listen, my newest latest thing, and I've been saying this for years, but now I'm really trying to be good about it, is give me the bill payer on the phone. So I'll talk to you and I'll talk to your groom and we can all have fun. And then if you're not paying the bills, I need to talk to the person who will be so that they see that I am a lucid thinking, decently good person and
Right.
innocent until proven guilty. So, because I think that's the rub. 3 or 4 months in, they've been just stroking checks and they've never met me.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I think that's that disconnect is they're thinking, "Who is this chick in Charleston who's just spending my money like water?" Um,
Right.
I think that's what happens
And
too.
information is power. Giving them, I am sure we've all had the clients who put their head in the sand and don't want to see that they're approaching that $1 million mark or whatnot. But I am very huge into every single call we have. If we're doing a shared agenda or notes doc, they constantly have a link to the budget that there's no excuse for them not to see what decisions they're making and how they are impacting the budget. Like there is continuous accountability on behalf of the client.
And okay, yes, same. There's a living budget you can see in your client portal that is a screenshot every day of
Right.
exactly where we stand. The trouble with that is it's what's spent to date. So what they like to not see and not open and disregard after seeing it once and signing off on it once is those projections that are much higher numbers because they're the
Sure.
reality. So that's weird too. But okay, both are living in your portal. I mean, I'm not going to beat you over the head and have you look at it every day, but like if you need to look at it once a week to not be fussy in the end game, please do. So that's
Right.
like how do I teach you to be an adult and behaviorally to look at spreadsheets every now and then so that you don't feel the anxiety surrounding the climbing number because the number's still on its way to exactly where we said it would be. I'm not talking about
Right.
when way over and you've swiped your button to a corner and now you're fussy about it. That's a different set of problems. But I did have a client years ago who said, "Well, we don't open a single thing you send." And I was like, "Oh, so that by not opening it, that bill's not going to come. I love that journey for you. That's when my contract changed.
Oh.
Just because you don't open your attachments doesn't mean that the bills aren't coming." And then I also had a client one time who she and her fiance were they were actually already married. So she and her husband were funding the wedding and it was getting super, super, just sub 10 million. It was getting up there. I mean, at least is my impression that's a ton of money and it's all a ton of money, but
Oh yeah.
I was getting up there and they're quite young and there weren't any parents in the mix. They're not with us anymore, et cetera. It's a particular situation, but still she was opening things and not showing them to him. And so they weren't looking at it together. And we get very close into the wedding and he's sort of starting to open things and he's shell shocked. And I'm like, but again, I can't fit, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink. I can't manually make this man, my groom, open and look at something, and I
Right.
didn't know he wasn't looking or taking it seriously, so I wouldn't have nothing would have triggered for me to be like, "Now listen, are what
Right, but that's
it's not."
also not your responsibility. That is you can't get between I mean, I recently had a mom do that, be like, at the 30-day out mark, her husband's now just seeing the bills. And she's like, he might be calling you and you need to have a conversation." I'm like, I can't get in your marriage, this is this is not my
Yeah,
job. So,
yeah,
yeah,
he's welcome to call me, and I'm gonna walk him through exactly what I've just walked you through. Just
exactly.
these are the things that we've built together over a year, and this is what they cost, and you signed off on it each time. Someone did. And that's
Yes.
and then that's yeah, that's been a particular rub is like I do feel like I'm in their underwear drawer. I do feel
Ugh.
like don't you feel like we should have this honorary psych degree from like an Ivy? I'm still waiting on that like sheepskin to come in the mail. I'm like, how do I
Yeah.
and have you seen how those people charge? I'm like, I'm not charging enough hourly. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Should we
Yeah.
charge hourly
Exactly.
on top of consulting? No. And
Yeah.
it's tough. I do feel like that's why I'm like, you don't get to hide dad until month 9 from me. I need
Mhm.
him knowing I exist, talking to me, and
I love
because then
that.
he'll
That
find me
is
on the dance floor.
Yeah, that's great
And like,
advice. And then the dad, I mean, they'll be your biggest advocate. And I love when you have won over a father who has invested what they didn't think they would, and then they come out seeing tremendous value, and then they are your biggest advocate. I'm like, if I could send a referral and it's a dad to a dad,
yeah,
that's a win.
I did just say the last week. I said, "May I put you in touch?" It was a bride with whom I was speaking, but I said, "I think it sounds like your dad has reservations. May I put him in touch with 3 different dads? For love my moms, love my brides, my grooms too, but forget just get let me get some other dads on the horn, and they will play golf on the phone and realize it's all good." Yeah, I do love that big, crazy bear hug on the dance floor from dad, whose eyes are like he just thought that I was in it to get him to buy a $1 grillion worth of flowers. I'm like, it really,
Yeah.
it's not about the flowers. Like
Uh-uh.
you're so sweating the flowers. Let me explain. And then they see it, and there's just such joy in that.
And you're so proud, of course.
Mhm.
Well, since you brought up flowers, let's talk a little design. A hot topic, and I love this, is about planning and design, and how some planners, especially in Charleston, some planners do design all in-house. They produce it themselves and contract all of the decor providers. Now the big thing is, or there's a more, I don't know, more people are doing this, where the planner is not also the designer. They are outsourcing the design, a big design house.
Mhm.
So, what are your thoughts here, and why is it so important for clients, discerning clients, to understand the difference of a planner versus planner designer?
Burning hot topic. I feel like it's gonna be a hot topic too for the next few years until we sort this thing out, and I wonder what our respective lead calls, how they're shifting our pitch, our early discussions, the way we comport ourselves or what we share in those early talks. I wonder how that has shape shifted swiftly over the past few years, bearing down on this. So I can see both sides, and I think I can sell against both sides. But here's just what I think, and I could be wrong, but this is just like sort of my take. For me personally, I love to design. I think I was given a gift that it just kind of falls out of my brain, some good ideas. I'm not
Mhm.
alone in that. There's a ton of talent out there. And when the wedding investment is clipping swiftly towards something in the twos and above, twos and threes and above, 2 million and up. And I don't know why. That's not arbitrary. It's more based on just the heaviest lift of this particular Saturday party. When you start to see just so many people in the mix, whether it's a celebrity chef, a celebrity stylist, maybe a really big name international act, or when there's kind of all these pieces to the puzzle where everyone's got a major ego and everything is just so hairy from a price point perspective. Sure. In that event, I probably do need help on the design front because I get pressed for time.
Right.
So, and not just time, maybe someone can take some of my ideas and embolden them and enliven them and make them richer, fuller, more fabulous. No question. But in that sub $1.5 million price point, down into the three and four and $500,000 weddings, I feel like there's not enough that you can cordon off for decor and production from the beginning in those price points that it needs to be subcontracted unless the planner just really doesn't have that gift. Like there's no school
Right.
for this. And
Right.
that's totally cool and fine. I don't judge those people. I love a great logistician. I am a good logistician, so I appreciate the side of the brain and the type of woman or man who loves the planning piece more so than anything and is just better at or best at the planning piece.
Mhm.
Fine. So I'm not really talking about that person because if they're honest about that they're never going to dream up a custom bar, I'm fine with that. I
Sure.
haven't been able to. So I want to give my clients that value. I feel like I'm a great buy because when you buy me, you get me. I'm not going to pass your digital file along to like some sort of 26-year-old associate who's just going to like plan your wedding while I gallivant around at fam trips. Discuss in a minute.
Huge, huge, huge point. Yeah.
Huge. like,
Yeah.
But I also know that I can bring you top tier design. But I've also been at it a very long time. So I probably wouldn't have said that in the first few years. The first 8 years, I
Well,
would
I
have
also feel
felt.
like Calder, that when you started, this wasn't a thing. Like, it also wasn't, you had to be a good designer, I feel
Mm.
like.
You know how I know that? This will make you giggle. When you look at Snyder Event
Yeah.
Rentals, one of our local purveyors, and you look at what they have available in bar rentals, I'm not saying I invented it because several of us were around then too. It's just a much smaller pool. But that two-paneled 8-foot bar, where you're doing either wallpaper or an
Mhm.
insert or
Mhm.
oyster shells on the front or girl, I mean, come on. They were not doing two-paneled bars, and
Yeah.
I was. I was having Blossoms
Yeah.
produce them all, and then in short order, and understandably so. It's not definitely not intellectual property. I'm sure brides without a me or with a different me started to call Snyder and say, "By golly, I want a two-paneled bar with a muntin around it, and I want two pretty floral panels that look like Gracie or Dugournet." Boom. And all of a sudden, or suddenly there were multiple rental bars at places like Snyder. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so fun. Oh, and there's my bar that I designed. Like, great.
Yeah.
Like, worry about the day they stop copying you is, you don't worry about being copied ever, ever, ever. That's a compliment. And so that was really funny to see that what I would design would trickle down into more of like a middle market rental program. And I'm like, good, that's what the girls want. And they should be able to access it. And then but that's like child's play compared to what we're talking about now. So that's kind
Right.
of interesting. Is just like having a pretty bar at your party became de rigueur and de facto, and now it's like that is the least of our problems from a design perspective. But yeah, I what I would never want to do is have someone call me and say, "We're having 200 people seated in California a year from now, and we think you're the one for us, and we have 1.35." And for me to turn around and say, well, by golly, you're going to have yet another $500,000 purchase from New York, Chicago, LA to to make it substantive or to substantiate the purchase of me, just feels a little like a shell game. Just feels a little like a switcheroo. I just don't love that, and the budget can't support it. So then they're disappointed because they are looking at weddings that are more in the 2.5 to 5 range. Full tilt 5-day parties in a ground up build out kind of location like Montana, Wyoming, California, Europe, etc. And they're upset because of a thousand different reasons that we've covered. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's tricky these days.
It really is. And I think, and I think this goes back to how things have evolved over the past few years. The expectation when you are in the 300, 400, $500,000 wedding range,
Hmm.
at least from the planner perspective, that mentality of I have to have this designer so that I can piggyback and up my game, but yet like you don't have the money to support it. So it's
Right.
I think there's also I guess where I'm going with this is you have to put in the time, you have to put in the grunt work, you have to pay your dues, like, those days will come. There's a lot of
Hmm.
overnight success dreams of, like, people who buy the engaged ticket, they go, they drink the Kool-Aid, and all of a sudden they got their first wedding that's maybe 500,000, but, like, most of their bread and butter is still 200, 300 grand,
Hmm.
and, like, You just gotta be patient. You gotta I don't know. You can't hire that big design house right out the gate and then be Calder Clark.
Nor should you, because now your client has double designer, but not enough in the line items to substantiate some really rich design or something that's like profound or like
Yeah.
chewy. Really,
Oh,
your design is a great looking cocktail napkin, a beautiful cake table, some maybe two or three cool focal points. Good on you. It's fantastic. That's, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that beautiful project. It is not going to include like insane pieces of real estate where the entire ceiling and the entire floor and the entire perimeter are all treated and touched, you know? So, and
right,
nor does it need to. Like, they're
right.
just going to hate you because now they've got to give that guy or girl another 20 to 30% consulting. That's where I get a little like, these big design houses are fantastically talented, but remember, they're going to get their piece too, as well they should. I'm
Right.
not knocking it, but they're going to take a design fee that has nothing to do with the product that the client gets. And I am too. So then it's like, that feels a little, I don't know, like something feels gross about that. When you have larger budgets, we are earning our keep apps
Right.
1000, and no one even really argues about it because it's quite clear because we're sleepless.
I think it also you mentioned when we started this little piece of the conversation of how sales calls will go and how clients might really be like, "Okay, am I paying you 20% to plan and design my wedding, or am I paying you 20% to just plan and I'm going to have to outsource design for an additional 20% on whatever those costs are?"
And how about the third unspoken version, which is I'm paying you 20% to plan my wedding. I didn't ask the right questions because how would you know? You don't know what you don't know. I don't blame them. It's a very strange industry and no one's telling the truth on Instagram. So you don't know what to ask. And the person whom you've hired is not telling you that they're not a designer because maybe they don't even know they're not. They do think that like a cocktail napkin with a monogram on it is design. So they sort of that's that push pull of I'm a little bit green, I'm 5 to 7 years in, and I sort of think that if I just get a good looking bar and change the color of it, that's enough. But and so you never know that you should have had more robust design within that 20%. So maybe
Yeah.
if that person had gotten to me, they would get a lot more, I hate to say bang for the buck because kind of ew, but like I mean, they don't know what they don't know, but you and I can see it when that project finally hits the socials. You're like, oh, I mean, if we knew the investment, like sometimes when we can see, it's just funny to see where the money does and doesn't go, like where the
Yeah.
buckets. I'm fascinated
Yeah.
by that.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to shift gears and talk about something that you spoke at Engage about, and it's rigor, repetition, refinement, and you emphasize discipline, which is a rarity in the industry, and you talked about creative rigor.
Uh-huh.
So what does that look like in practice?
So, do you mean how do I get the good ideas to start flowing?
Yeah, and also just good ideas to flow, but also like I mean 26 years in, there's this need to reinvent the wheel,
Hmm.
but also I mean, you can master your craft, master your design, master your style. So, like, how can you keep things fresh and keep that spark going in your mind? And is it okay to repeat? Is it okay to refresh designs that you've done before? Or do you feel this pressure that you have to just do something new, completely new every time? Because when I think about your work and your weddings, I feel like there is a common thread of just you look at a beautiful wedding and it's fresh. Like, I can tell when it's one of your weddings, but it is always still individual to your clients, clearly,
Hmm.
and the location of where you are. So, I guess that discipline just talk to us about creative discipline and at least what it means for you and how you've persisted over these 26 years.
In the early days, I was selling against a different set of folks against whom I don't find myself these days per se. And so I think it's also like who your milieu is. Like who like I was I am up currently for a job in London this week and I'm against a few London planners and I was considering how to position myself in a second set of calls surrounding this project that I really really want. And I was thinking about that creative rigor and the person I know might win out is very seasoned but is a rinse and repeater. And I thought, how easy for me to say without saying, she's a rinse and repeater. Like, you don't want to use her. Of course, I was going to say, one thing that I think sets us apart is that I do what blows my skirt up is reinventing the wheel, which is sick. I know we need to look inside my head and figure out just entirely what's wrong. Like
Yeah.
someone, like let's look at the autopsy 30 years from now. I mean, like, well, 40 years from now, I don't know. Like let's discuss that decades from now. There's something screwball about me that I don't do the branded bride, but perhaps that's because of the early O's when that was anathema to me. It's really chic. I do think that I'll open. Well, it used to be that we'd open a magazine. Depressing that you can look at an image and go, I'll bet that's so and so. There's something really cool about that. But when you start to see the same things used at every single wedding and the same shtick and the same recipe, it's not that I disrespect it, but I'm like, someone's being lazy. Like I do want to.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
texted someone the other day and was like, I'm sick of my layouts. I am so sick of what I tend to do, which is one long estate table down to the dance floor. Like I'm so should I do something things in the round? I mean, I'm not gonna SERP anything for the love of all things SERP, but what could I do that would shake up this diagram that would feel more inventive and thoughtful as people make their way throughout this room in 3D? So
Mm.
I that's part of that creative rigor is it's not okay. You know who Todd St. Onge, this is our lighting and sound guru. This is someone who my business has grown up with. And Todd and I are very honest with each other. I'll never forget years ago, he said, you all are going to give yourselves an ulcer. It is never good enough. Your recaps are brutal. After each event, you're tearing yourself down on all the things that could have been better. I'm like, oh, but that's the sweet sauce. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Like, how dare I rest on my laurels and think that that was a smashing success when I saw 10 things go wrong that shouldn't happen again? So au contraire, mon frere, slash, I see what Todd's saying. He's like, could you not stop and show yourself a little grace? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't. And so that is the creative rigor for me is sort of my favorite one is the one that hasn't happened yet. My favorite one is the next one I haven't even gotten yet. I am speaking at a conference next week and they asked us to send in pictures from our early body of work. And I'm like, girl, wait. I went deep into Dropbox and I was howling at the unsteamed linens, unpadded tables, the like sad tent cards with like hot pink calligraphy. I can't actually, some of them I'm like, this wasn't mine. Yes, it is, sister. Like, why do you think it's in your Dropbox? I like couldn't believe some of the funny things we did in like the early aughts and slash this what worked. And I was happy with it and it's all good. But I happily sent funny images to them that I'm scared they're going to put up on some sort of big screen. I don't know what the plan is. The point is not to be looking backward, not to live in the past, not to live regretfully, not to open Instagram. For me, I just have to stay off it. I am too insecure to see the amazing work that you and all of my friends are doing because also then I'll be influenced by it and unwittingly maybe do something too close to it. I need to go be drinking in other things, travel,
Yeah.
book, anything else, listening to my clients. What's interesting to them? What did they buy recently? What are they doing with their homes, et cetera? So that's part of that is just like the mental space of not really studying other people's work.
I I love to hear you say that. Well, there are 2 things that I pulled out of what you were just saying. Well, you said earlier about, who cares about copying? Like, it's the biggest compliment you could get, and I hear very often planners who are designing their own things, and then they see it copied, 6 months, a year later, and they get all upset about it. I love that you said that. And it's so interesting that you stay off of social media, but I get that. I completely get that. So where you mentioned travel, like where do you get your sources of inspiration? How do you get into design mode? Do you bite it off in little pieces or do you go into like a few days alone and don't talk to anybody? Like what's your process?
I try. I've had to refine that for years and years and probably for 20 years. I waited until a week out from the design mock and presentation, which sounds impossible because surely I had ordered china, silver, glassware, flower, tables, linens, and chairs for said mock. But I'm not entirely sure how to. Maybe let's call it 3 weeks out from mock. I would sit down and put on Law and Order SVU, and not come out, not shower, not change, not parent, nothing, and go into like a lock in and design all the things. Super unhealthy. My husband's like, where are you and are you going to eat a meal? Just ill. And that's what worked for me ish, in so much as it's terrible procrastination. And then there was the bride who got too north of where she wanted to be and the husband who didn't look at the numbers before the wedding. And my team and I just sort of reassessed and said, like, we just can't feel like that again. That is wretched. And there's accountability and responsibility for that. That in some space we weren't browbeating them to look at their budgets, et cetera. But also maybe if we just backed up the design some, it was a short. That one, to be fair, was a very short term project. I think we had 5 months, but
Mm,
when you've got a year, like there's kind of no excuse. So
right.
I talked to some production companies and different people who are in my life and said, like, how are other planners doing it that you've seen be successful? Because my way is not working anymore. And they said, well, you know what some people do is like little tidbits of design, like, do you like this chair? And they step back. I'm like, okay. And they're like, I'm like, how do they do that? They're like, well, my gut says they've designed some, and then they pluck one thing that they know they want the client to have and propose it, then put it back in there. So it's not like they're proposing the chair and then hoping to reverse engineer that it works with their overall look. They're being the designer's overall look. So I did start to do, I do things that way now. I pigeonhole myself into early design. Within the first 3 months, I'm going to toss out ceremony design, some diagramming, some chair selects, some things you and I know we've got to get on hold anyway, or we just won't have them.
Right.
And that keeps me from waiting to the last minute. So where was I going with that? Design. And what was your question?
Just
Hmm.
just how you get into oh, I was asking about your process. I mean, you asked oh, the other source of where your inspiration is because you're off of Instagram.
Yes, yes. Okay, during all that, I'm just sort of listening to good tunes and doing
Mhm.
it, and maybe like tooling around on rental sites, trying to see what we have access to within, a truck's drive, like 9 to 12 hours of said location, and kind of thinking about what makes sense for the bottom line. Like I'm always trying to be fair to the client that, if we are near a very resourced city, can we at least see if there's some flatware in that city that we like? Sometimes there's not. Like it's wild that I can be in Aspen and find nothing in Dallas. That's just bizarre. I mean, not knocking Dallas, but I got some pretty scary chargers, and some pretty glittery flatware for my taste. And so I do start there concentrically, just like looking at other sites and seeing what's out there. And then I will go to the devil's playground. So here's a big source of inspiration for me. It's either Cabana or Frederick, which I get and drink and like it's my Bible. So I'm
Yeah.
constantly working through the existing interior design magazines, especially the heavy hitters that are kind of pricey, which is Cabana, Frederick, and Milieu. Then beyond those three, I will go to FAIR. Do you know
Mhm.
this? Do you know FAIR?
No.
Okay. FAIRE, fun little
Okay.
resource. FAIR is what should have happened 20 years ago. So when I was a teenager, I started going to market in Atlanta and New York with my sisters. And I would just traipse down the aisles and then sort of just like learn and glom onto whatever they were doing. We have a funny inside family joke. We call it the pedicure check. When you'll be in a booth and they've got beautiful things and they pedigree check you to see if you actually, like, are you Susie Q Homemaker with an LLC or do you actually buy for a business, even if it's not a storefront? And so we call it the pedicure check. So I would watch them go through the rigors of like a pedicure check at some of the higher end built-in perms, like the permanent showrooms, like big rug dealers and things like that, who are like, you're not walking out with like a tiny wholesale order today. So, and then I had my warehouse model for a long time. So what Fair is the online marketplace for market so that I kind of no longer bother with market. Because if I go to the Javits and I'm walking through and I see the same stuff I've seen for 5 years in a row, it just breaks me. Should go to Paris and go to Maison and Deco off and all that. But that's not in the cards right now. Trying to make sure my kids don't like fall off a cliff. Okay, cool. So therein lies the rub that I just put myself on Fair and I will put in things I like. So I'll be like, let me think about what my home needs. So strange. I'll put in like, here's a tablescape I wish I had for this coming Easter. Or I know I'm hosting Thanksgiving. I want olive green and like a rich, like a minky taupey color, maybe like a chocolate brown. And I'll start to look at linens, china, flatware, glassware, and then like cool basketry, cool centerpiece containers, like things like that. And I'll save it all and then back into my client's look for their wedding. Maybe they are in browns and greens, or maybe they're in blues and creams, but whatever their color palette might be, or their texture, or their location, and how it all comes together, I will kind of shop online for them and then bake that into Rental World because otherwise your weddings and my weddings look the same every day. Like
Right.
we
Yeah.
finally got Janori everywhere. So I'm like,
Right.
I mean, I'm not tired of Janori. I never will be, don't get me wrong. But I'm like, Hmm. If every Tom, Dick, and Harry wedding for the next 2 years is going to have that pink and brown Janori plate, what is something that I can find wholesale that we can get 300 of that's not going to break the bank that would be just kind of a refreshing little pop on the table? So
Sure.
in that sense, I'm trying to, I'm straddling the fence between interior design and event design and someone who's always understood the wholesale game. And so that's very inspiring to me and becomes part of a production order on a spreadsheet. And then I do get to my like the big design deck final pièce de résistance dinner deck piece, and I will put on SVU. It's back to SVU. We don't know why crime fuels good weddings. Yeah, it's
Now I know what
disturbing.
now I know what goes through your mind when you're creating these.
Yeah, it's
I
it's
love it.
very knifey. It's very bloody. But my brides think it's hilarious, and if they don't like SVU, we probably wouldn't be friends. We probably aren't a good fit. So that's a great like litmus test for should we get in bed together is do you like SVU?
I can hear the theme song, like, going through your mind. Now when I
Well, I
hear
mean,
weddings, dun, 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 dun.
dun, dun, dun. And then Maxine Owens just sent me, she brought to engage a little gavel
Yeah.
and a little pad, and it makes a dun dun noise when I gavel it. And now that's in my car. And when my kids are done arguing and someone has won, I'll dun dun, and that person's like won the argument. It's great.
I love
Um,
it.
but that's kind of where I go creatively. Magazines still, because I think of myself as like from another time, except for I love AC, but I'm definitely Victorian and fair and places like that online. Like
Great,
what else is
gr great
what else is
tips.
I gonna tell you along those lines? Like, do you ever like Cabana? Yeah, just Cabana. I mean, I just
Yeah.
live like I get their online digital articles, and I haven't gone to Substack yet, though I think that could be a fun place for me. Have you gotten
Yeah.
on Substack?
I've subscribed, but I haven't it's just like one more thing, but I
I
know
know,
I like it.
I
But
know,
I like the ritual of magazines too. I like my coffee, I like my time alone, I like flipping, I like tearing. I still tear things out. Like I have a
I do
file.
too.
I don't know, I just love it. I don't know.
I think the best of us do. I don't know. I saw a peer of yours and mine recently do this really beautiful wall in her studio, and I'm like, that's so smart. It was like a very glamorous version of my pen board. And I'm like, that's a beautiful way to see every day what's working for you. I used to have those like massive boards
Yeah.
down where I'd have like everything I tore out. And I kind of miss that. Like, let's bring it back.
I remember when the brides would mail in their clip outs, like, and
Yeah.
and then you'd have a clipboard in the office and you'd pen it up, but they would mail in their clippings.
You know, I'm still really good friends with an '09 bride, and our team is, and we have a text chain going where we call out grammatical errors that we see in the world because we're losers. And so, especially air quote, like unnecessary air quotes.
Yeah.
And they'll sometimes we'll just voice memo each other and say ridiculous things, but it's mostly critique of common society and how nobody knows how to speak anymore. The law, the gerund is dead and the adverb is dead and all the things. And but she and I, we were laughing. The groom is on it too. We were giggling the other day. They're both just design minded, and they introduced me to Pantone chips. But I'll never forget getting a business envelope, like an ugly, just white business envelope from one of their jobs, from one of their offices, and it had these little like colored teeth in it. I'm like, what is that? I shook it out, and these little bitty Pantone chips fell out, and it was cantaloupe, charcoal gray, no, dove gray, and like a deep spearmint color. And that was the look of her wedding. And we still giggle. And I was like, what are these things? And she's like, they're Pantone chips. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I like protect my Pantone deck like it's, my child. But I do remember all that. There was something beautiful about that. I had a bride
Yeah,
send me a tear out from veranda, and it was a living room, and it was just one page.
I
And
love
she
that.
wasn't draconian about things, but I saw so much in that image that I said, if you'll leave me alone for a minute, and if you're okay, I'm going to design your whole wedding from this page. And she
I
was like,
love that.
and
Yes.
we did, and it was so fun. It was just,
That's cool.
I don't know, the colors, the texture. We did velvet. We had these like kind of modern art. Anyway, it's really fun.
So cool.
Yeah.
Well, okay, we're getting short on time, and I want to, before we leave, talk about your presence on TikTok. We can't not talk about it.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, I mean, you
Where
have
I'm
just
talking about whether or not to shave with a razor or a Twinkie. I mean, it's deep.
we we are talking about you reaching influencer status, like going viral on TikTok. Like nobody's doing that, especially in the wedding industry, like you are. So, I mean, did this happen naturally? Is it something that you set out with intention? Like what's the strategy or how did this come to be?
So my sisters were going off to college when I was born. So I was an uh-oh baby, and that didn't even dawn on me. I'm like, what? I wasn't planned. Oh. And so I am influenced heavily by two older sisters, same parents. And then all of their children are, I'm the Piper, and their children are in their 30s and look up to me. So it's this wonderful pecking order of women looking up to each other. My daughter up to me, up to them up to me up to my sisters up to my mom, etc. So it's this wonderful legacy of women. And the cool 30-something nieces of mine, one of whom just got engaged and is my last niece bride, Mary Calder, my namesake. They keep me young and like have all the fun ideas. And so for several Christmases in a row, I would see them like on their phone. I'm like, what are you scrolling through so fast? This is kind of before Instagram Reels.
Mhm.
And I was like, I just don't understand why is your finger doing this, like versus this? And they're like, oh, we're on TikTok. And I'm like, I can't do one more thing. Like I just ignored it. And so then one Christmas a few years ago, my socials team was at my house to film like just normal content for Instagram. Just a little like I think we didn't do a holiday table. I don't know what we were filming that day, but something kind of chill. Just put me on gimbal and run around. I think I was maybe decorating my tree. I don't know. But at least I had makeup on and I was like somewhat coherent and caffeinated. And happened to have all of my needlepoint ornaments out on my dining room table. During COVID, when I thought the world was over and my business was over and was highly considering commercial real estate, I also decided that I was going to be a needlepointer and picked it up and made 150 ornaments in like a 9-month span, which is also not good and very sick and very like
We'll look
addictive.
at the autopsy. I won't forget. Yeah.
Again, like we're going to
Yeah.
study this bizarre brain because it's going
Yeah.
to be. Mm, they're not going to be fascinated. It's not going to be like, oh, she was a great thinker.
Yeah.
Um, but I made all these ornaments. And so Hannah, who was with my social agency at the time and is now with a wedding planning team, actually, she goes, why don't we put this on TikTok? And I'm like, because I'm not on TikTok, dummy. And also
Yeah.
because the people on TikTok will be like, what the heck is this folk art? Like, I don't want my brides to think I'm a grandma. And she's like, ugh, you're such a nerd. Just let me do it. She's like, I want to learn to needlepoint and I'm young and cute. And I'm like, you are young and cute. Okay. So I just like let her do, I didn't even think
Yeah.
anything of it. And then that went viral. And then one thing led to another and the community grew. And I've had zero intention about it. And what's fun is I do think being intentional is good, of course. But in this regard, it is just a free for all, which is not very much my personality. In fact,
Mhm.
one of our
Right.
mutual peers said, I feel like you're like a multi hyphenate. Like, I feel like, what's your strategy over there? And I was like, that I have zero strategy. Like, I know you think you just put me on the spot, but honestly, um, the TikTok girlies don't want to think you have a strategy. And it won't, in my opinion, it won't land softly and
Right.
naturally if you do, or at least if your strategy is too me oriented, money oriented. It's still the wild, wild west. And I think people like that about it because it's not perfection driven. So until it gets massively infiltrated and becomes this like nastily, eerily perfect place where dreams go to get crushed, I will just keep showing up makeupless to talk about a belt I got that I like.
Yeah.
But I also like it's been a fun place for top tips to land. Like, I mean, I don't know how they perform on Instagram. I don't go see, and I don't really know how they perform on TikTok. Other than I always get a ton of comments and I get to talk to people. It's a conversation and it's very lighthearted and silly. You're on there. You do a great job on there.
I'm
I'll
trying.
never
I'm
forget your.
dabbling.
No, listen. Okay, people are still talking about you produced a beautiful wedding at Kiowa River where you had a piano out in the open. Hi.
Yeah.
Very few people know what a big stinking deal that was to put it on a beautiful custom platform, yada, yada, yada. And my God, TikTok's like, you like her, you like her, you like her.
Yeah.
It kept putting it in
Yeah.
front of me. I'm like, I do like it. I commented. I love
Yeah.
Reagan. Like,
Yeah.
it kept showing it to me like, isn't this you? And I'm like, yes, it is me. Ding dong. The algorithm's working hard. My
Yeah.
Chinese spy is like, you like Reagan. I'm like, I do. So putting the pretty out there without really any hope for where it goes and just to let people see like a little glimpse into your soul, as woo woo as that sounds, I think goes over well there. The only thing I'll say that I don't like about TikTok that I'm noticing is several videographers in our industry and lots of photographers in our industry, and certainly the brides, but I kind of don't blame them because it's theirs to do what they want with. But the video and photo teams are putting out a lot of real wedding stuff on TikTok and not giving any credit. So I'm like,
Mhm.
it's sad because I'll go to this, TikTok post that gets like a million views and, 400 comments and it's absolutely stunning. And it's just like hashtag Northern Wedding at the bottom. And you're like, there was a me behind that and she needs a little prop. And there was
Yeah,
a florist and all kinds of wonderful people like, "Mm, mm-mm. Just because TikTok's more casual, don't be not adding people." So
sure.
that has kind of bothered me. I try to at people where appropriate, but
Well,
it's fun.
especially
You're doing a great job. Like I
thank
love that
you.
there's just zero pressure. You can
Well, I mean, that's nice, and that's why it works because TikTok users want the real you, the raw you, the authentic you. Have you last question because I know you have a call in 4 minutes, about TikTok, are you seeing this translate into sales? Are you having people call you and being like, "Oh my god, I fell in love with you on TikTok"?
yes and no. I have had several influencers call me. That's not necessarily what I'm trying to attract unless you're willing to pay to play, in which case let's do it. I don't relish the working for free thing. I'm just a girl trying to get by and again feed some faces. So that to me is sort of I mean, I'm happy to talk to him. I've had several of that kind reach out because I think they saw some credibility that I too am able to garner a following, and that maybe something about my shtick works or something or is exciting. So it's still like a compliment, but that's not entirely like the bride I want to work with every single day. Yeah, I mean, no, not perfectly directly, but the minute I've booked someone, I will soon find out that they are either talking to me on TikTok or following me on TikTok, or they'll say, like, "Oh my gosh, I saw your TikTok the other day." I'm like, "Oh, you
Yeah,
did? I didn't even," because I'm not looking at who's following me because who has time? Um, so I think they're following me on there, but they're not directly saying like, I
sure.
called you because of it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
who really knows? They're still saying I found you on a list or the best kind, which is someone told me about you. There's
yeah,
the real deal kind that you're going to love is typically my sister's boyfriend's dog's cousin used you and had nothing but nice things to say 10 years ago. My God,
yeah.
could we just print that bride
They're
daily?
the best kind, the best
So,
kind.
yeah.
Well, Calder, to close us out, what would you like to leave listeners with?
A little shred of hope that let's just keep digging, especially if we are listening. If who do you think is listening the most? You would know your podcast audience. Is it intra industry, extra industry? You tell
It's
me, and I'll
it's a lot of people in the industry.
okay. Which I
Mhm,
love. Can we just talk
mhm.
to our industry buddies all day long? Because, like,
Yeah,
wow, they're in the trenches with us. I think just that you don't have to have it all figured out. No one does. And we all put our pants on the same way and just be yourself. Everybody else is already taken. All of those adages are adages for a reason because there's truth and purity in that, and that you can reinvent yourself. I'm about to embark again on a brand new website, a whole new brand concept of just like who I think I am now. And that has shifted even in the past year.
I love that.
And I was talking to someone the other day who said, "But I love your logo. And I feel like you just did it." I think it was actually like 7 or 8 years ago. It's not
Oh,
brand
wow.
new. I do like my logo too. I like keep the logo. But the point is the copy on the body of my website, it's just not me. It's not how I talk. It's not feeling like me, and that means the bride is not really able to see me, especially if I'm not gonna be active on Instagram and really talking to brides like I
Yeah,
so I guess I want people to leave with the fact that, like, you do you, and it's okay to just, it's okay to set it down sometimes and just to kind of know your niche, know your corner, and be happy in your corner. Your world might be smaller. Mine is small. My team and I talk
right,
about this, like, we don't wanna be small people, but it's
right.
okay for our world to be kind of small. I was talking to a planner recently in our neck of the woods in Charleston, and she's like, "I'm okay with regional. Like, I don't
Mhm.
need to have a wedding in Amalfi to feel good about myself." And I was like, "Bitch, preach." I was like, "I understand." Like, I wildly understand. And so I would say, like, just being really okay with what's been given to you and the gifts you've been given and kind of like I'm not saying stay in your lane, but enjoy your niche, enjoy your little
Right.
corner that you've built beautifully because it might be as good as it gets. And if this is as good as it gets, well, we're having a lot of fun, aren't we?
That is great advice.
You know?
Yeah,
There
absolutely.
you have it.
Calder, thank you so much. Thank you for being
Fun
with
as
me
always.
today. So
Thanks for
good.
having. Have a good one.